a voice and presentation coach, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't always like that. I actually have a very long background in the entertainment industry. All I ever wanted to do when I was a little girl was to sing and dance and act and be in the circus. Like probably so many other little girls, right? But I went through phases of wanting to be a hairdresser or, you know, a flight stewardess or something like that. But I always came back to singing, dancing, acting. And I
Wow.
think I was born in the wrong era because I really wanted to be with Gene Kelly dancing on MGM
Oh,
musicals.
that song about the rain.
Yeah,
Singing.
sing in the rain. Yeah,
Yeah.
that just the musicals in that time was just filled with beautiful fantasy world, and it was a
Mhm.
different world. I
Yeah.
wanted to live in that world.
Yeah.
I didn't want to live in the shell that I've been given, which was nervous, shy, anxious, insecure little girl. I wanted to live in that fantasy world that was completely different to my inner child.
Beautiful.
Luckily for me, when I saw a parade going down the street when I was about 7 years old, I pointed to the baton twirlers who were dressed up in all their little epaulets and their sequins, and they'll throw their batons in the air and looked also super exciting. So I thought, ooh, that's my first step. So I joined the baton twirling club. And then I traveled around Australia doing all those competitions and exams and things like that. And then eventually did jazz and ballet and tap and acrobatics and gymnastics and then trapeze. And I did run away to join the circus when I was 16. I've had a pretty colorful life.
Yeah, what a life. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, so that all started at a very young age. And I think the reason that I was a successful entertainer for more than 35 years was purely because, as a friend of mine says, I kept showing up. I
Yeah.
just kept showing up. And that's the key, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
It's the key to get somewhere is you've got to just keep showing up and have faith in yourself that it's going to be okay.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
A friend of mine around very early in my career said to me, you know, just do what you love and the money will come.
Yeah.
And I lived
Sorry
by
about.
that. I
Yeah.
lived by that motto for most of my life. So instead of a lot of performers, they have a plan B or they serve coffee or, you know, have a side job.
What you're saying. Yeah.
I
Barrister.
didn't do that. I didn't want to. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be completely immersed in the entertainment industry. So luckily for me, I kept showing up. I kept showing up. I kept showing up. Took every single opportunity that was available to me, and that eventually took me overseas. So
Wow.
in 1995, when I had a record deal, I moved to Amsterdam. Had
Oh,
to
what a
learn
beautiful
new
place.
language,
Oh,
dragging a child with me, you know, a brand new life, brand new everything. And
yeah.
for the next 20 years, I traveled around Europe and I traveled around America, singing and performing and writing songs. So
Oh,
that's
gorgeous.
what I've spent a lot of my time doing. Most people think, though, as an entertainer and somebody on stage, that that person would be ultra confident and very sure of themselves and maybe a little bit egotistical.
Mm.
Well, and I've been accused of that a few times from friends, but they didn't realize that secretly on the inside, I was suffering from crippling anxiety.
Wow.
I had unresolved trauma and PTSD for more than 20 years, and my insides were a mess.
Mm.
That started to really cause problems in my 20s and 30s when that all started to manifest, as it does, into a physical problem.
That's exactly
And the
right.
physical problem, because of all that anxiety, and I'd allowed trauma and car accidents, things that I couldn't control,
Yeah.
but then emotional, physical abuse, things that I
Agree.
suppose could
Yeah.
have controlled, but I didn't because I didn't have the tools. I allowed all that to color my life. And
Wow.
eventually it arrested here. It arrested my voice.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't speak up and speak out for myself. I ended up allowing men to take over my life and boss me around. It was sort of like being boiled slowly. You know that
Not
analogy about
nice.
a boiled frog?
Yeah, not a very nice feeling at all.
No, so you put the frog in the water when the water is cold and stick the saucepan on the stove, and the frog has no idea that he's getting hotter and hotter until he's boiled,
Yeah,
right?
spoiled.
Well,
Yeah.
that happened to me over a long period of time. So it was a very long journey for me to really find my voice, find my voice of confidence, find my voice of leadership. And it was probably a 10 or 20 year journey. So my goal and my passion these days is to make sure that other people don't have to suffer such a long period of time.
Yeah.
So I shortcut that track now by reverse engineering confidence. And the way that I reverse engineer confidence is teach people better voice skills so they know how to master their instrument. They can calm their mind, calm their breath, calm their nerves, and then speak in succinct sentences so people can understand you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's completely changed my life. You know, and it didn't happen overnight. It's something that I didn't just decide that. At about 35, I realized that I needed to really change something. So I was a school dropout, so I thought I'd never be smart enough to go to university. But I actually applied to an online university when they were, what were they called? Correspondence courses back then, because I'm quite old. So all of the books arrived literally in a box, and I had 50 books to go through. And at the time I was singing for a living on a cruise ship. So luckily they just arrived before one of my 6-month cruises, and I started work on my very first bachelor degree in holistic nutrition.
Wow.
When I finished that very slowly over 5 years, I realized that there was a lot more to what you put in your body than just the food and the choices that you make. And I realized that there's a whole psychological component to healing your body as well, and healing your mind. So then I switched universities. I'd moved to America by that stage. And then I did a master's degree in holistic health and spiritual counseling, because I knew I needed more answers.
Yeah.
And then I was so inspired by everything I learned, and the feeling of my soul re-entering my body was so overwhelming. I knew that I was on the right path.
Yeah, powerful.
And when I came back to Australia just a few years ago, I decided to do another master's degree, this time in voice.
Right.
So for me, I've made the full circle.
Yeah. And combined it all together, like it's all works together now.
Yeah. As a holistic voice coach, that's what I do. And I didn't realize when I was going through all that there's so much more to voice, singing, speaking, acting, whatever, than meets the eye.
Yes,
People
absolutely.
think that person on the stage is completely in control of their life, but look at the people who commit suicide, take drugs, end their life. Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. I mean, there's so many people with so many amazing skills and incredible talent.
Absolutely.
And yet still something was going on. They weren't balanced. And so they ended their life either on purpose or accidentally.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so sad.
That balance, actually, that balance that you're talking about, you know, getting that balance right. It's interesting that it affected you in your voice, you know, as an actress or an actor. To have your voice is one of the key things that you need. Like, how did you cope with that? Like, it presented physically, obviously. So,
yeah.
How did you just push through, or did you, how did you deal with it? Yeah.
In the beginning, I did. It was the Adele situation when I was in my early 20s, and I was singing a lot and probably way too much. And then during the day, because I was a single mum at the time. I'd been a single mum since I was 18, and I'd been trying to raise my son and then do, 5, 6, 7 gigs a week as well on top of that. So I was working way too hard. I wasn't looking after myself. I was quite stressed. I think I was smoking still at the time, probably drinking too much, not sleeping enough. It's like the whole thing. And so I lost my voice quite dramatically, but it started slowly. And it would be at the end of a gig, I'd lose it. And then it'd take me 3 days to get it back. So I'd have to put somebody else into some of my gigs until I got my voice back. And then it just got worse and worse from there, until eventually I was singing a gig that I was supposed to do for 4 hours. And I'd lose my voice after the first set.
Wow.
And then I have to shove the guitar player in front of the microphone or somebody else. And it was just, I was so stressed and so anxious about everything that came out of my mouth, because I didn't know whether it was going to work or not.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that I went to the doctor right in the beginning, within the first couple of months. And he said, oh yeah, you've got nodules on your vocal folds, but so many singers have nodules. They're not big. They shouldn't really affect your vocal fold closure too much. So I think you're stressed, and I think you should break up with your boyfriend and take some Valium.
Wow. And isn't it interesting, you said about the whole balance, getting all that balance, and then you talk about the nodules on your voice box. current physicians, they're slowly changing, but current physicians and physicians back then were very much, there's something broken, but they didn't put the two together. They didn't put holistic healing,
right,
like, you know, spiritual, together with, you know, the fact that you're a single mom, you're battling, you know, trying to pay the bills and all of that other stuff that was going on for you. They just said, well, you've got nodules, it should be okay, you know, blah, 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 which is, you know, it's really frustrating. And it's the physical that stops you in your tracks. You know, it really prevents you from attaining that next step in your path. So
yeah, but and as a doctor usually does, you know, it's symptomatic and they would address a symptom. But for me, for whatever reason, he decided that my symptom was not my symptom, that it was my mind, it was all in my head, and I was too stressed, and so I should take a Valium. That was his idea, right? Well, he didn't realize what sort of trajectory that would put me on, because for the next 3 years, I struggled like crazy to try to keep my gigs. I was stressed and tired all the time because I was singing through this damage. And the more damage that you have, the more you push, because the harder you have to work to actually get your vocal folds to close. It was just, you know, just a nightmare. And so eventually they became so big that I was actually talking like that. So I could barely sing 5 notes, let alone speak 5 notes. So I ended up back at the doctor again, a different doctor.
Yeah.
This time they put the camera down my throat and said, yes, you have nodules, you need to get them removed surgically, like Adele did, right? And so many other singers. I decided, okay, now I know what it is, and I'm not crazy. It's actually happening. I'm going to get a second opinion just to be sure. Yeah. I went to a completely different doctor. They put the camera down my throat. Same thing. You need surgery. Let's take them off. Thought, I don't want a knife down my vocal folds.
Yeah.
And especially since I had close friends of mine who'd all had nodule operations. We're all in the same circle. We're all gigging really hard. We're all in our 20s. They'd had their nodules removed and they still sounded like that.
Wow.
I thought, there's got to be another way. I'll try one more doctor. If one more doctor tells me exactly the same thing, then I'll bite the bullet and I'll go and get the operation. I went to this last doctor and he said, yep, you've got nodules, I can take them off. He said, however, if you want to, you can try speech therapy for 6 weeks and see if it helps. It's like, okay, what does that involve? He sent me off to a speech pathologist. Luckily for me, the speech pathologist was also a professional singer. So she had her whole practice of speech pathology and she sang on the side. So she knew exactly what was going on and could really help me from, you know, every perspective.
Yeah.
I then had to shut my mouth. This was the hardest part of all this. I had to shut my mouth for 6 weeks with a 4-year-old. Can you imagine?
Oh my goodness. No, I can't.
I had to work out, you know, what I could write. And then this meant shower, you know, that meant come here, you know.
Wow.
I had to work out all these signals so I could converse with him but not make sound. And it was so hard because people then would treat me like an idiot. Wow. As though I couldn't hear and as well couldn't speak. And it was so frustrating. So I ended up having to just give away all my gigs. Of course, I couldn't speak anyway, hand them over to friends. And I went to Queensland and sat under a tree and played guitar and did other things to sort of get out of the spotlight and keep away from people.
That with the hippies.
Yeah, I sort of became a hippie, I suppose, and cleaned up my lifestyle and gave up smoking and stopped talking and doing all that. And things changed. Wow. I came back 6 weeks later. I got the scope again down my throat, and he said, "They're gone. You're good."
Wow.
But that whole experience left me in a completely different pathway. Wow. I was so stressed and worried and paranoid about my voice for the next 10 years. I had all sorts of other issues vocal. I never lost my voice again, thank God, but I had other issues that happened because of the tension patterns, because of the experience.
Yeah.
Everything that I'd gone through, you know, that physiological healing and the psychological healing, the mental, physical, emotional aspects of voice, I had to really put all those pieces together. And that's why I started to study. I really needed answers.
Yeah.
by the time I got through 3 degrees and I got all the answers that I needed, it's sort of this light bulb went off, and I knew, for me, my logo is a butterfly going through a triangle. I knew that it had to be emotional, physical, and what's the other one? Mental. Emotional, physical, and mental aspects of voice production. And for me, the butterfly flying through the triangle denotes the transformation that you get when you really put all the pieces together.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, with my styling, it's the same type of thing. I find that, you know, I can style someone and I can, you know, say this, this, and this, but it's the emotional journey that they need to take to accept themselves, and the emotions or the beliefs, the stories that we tell ourselves, all of those things before we can actually truly transform our look, you know, and how we're presenting to other people, our reflection to other people. So it's truly interesting that, like Eliza, you said you were a voice coach, mentor, everything, and I had this I guess a story that, you know, that you were what you were, and it's completely different. It's so aligned to holistic and wellness, you know, all of those things being balanced. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And that's why now I have a different passion. My passion when I was a child was to be on stage, and I suppose not to be me was pretty much the goal. So I didn't have to live with the fear and the anxiety. Because you can step into a role. And look, there's lots of actors, like even Nicole Kidman has anxiety issues and shyness, and it's great being an actor because you can literally put on a mask and be someone else and get paid for it. It's awesome. And I still love it. I do still do a lot of acting these days with lots of television commercials, short films, things like that. But my passion is voice. And my passion is helping people find their authentic voice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Some people are so locked into those tension patterns because of anxiety, because of unresolved trauma, because of their thoughts, their belief systems, their familial conditioning. It just arrests all these muscles. When we have so many tension patterns around our jaw, our tongue, our teeth, our tummy, they can manifest as so many things in speech that stop us from living a full life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I teach people. You know, of course I teach corporate speakers as well, and very high-end speakers who don't have those issues in different things. But my heart's work is really helping, especially females, speak up and speak out.
Yeah.
A voice that's confident, strong, but graceful and feminine. You don't have to compete with a man.
No.
It's Women's Equality Day today. We don't have to compete with a man. We can be ourselves.
Absolutely.
I truly believe we can find our own authentic best voice to do that with, so we can share our message with the world.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, the authenticity. I love the authenticity, because that's I guess the key cornerstone of for most of us, is that the unique, authentic self is our true calling as coaches, as mentors, you know, to help others less. Well, they haven't arrived yet. They're still on their path, you know, and they're obviously facing traumas, things like that. So, what would you say to those people that are experiencing those types of things? What would you say to them?
Well, that's why I've written the little PDF that I'm giving to you guys tonight. It's called Why People Don't Listen, and how you can change that in 5 easy steps.
Beautiful.
And the reason why people have these, what I call disempowering vocal sounds, is mostly because of our limiting belief systems or our anxiety around being seen and being heard. Yeah. What I've done is I put that into a very quick, you know, it's a couple of pages PDF, but they're super simple tips for you to change your voice pattern so you can get heard a little easier. So let me share that with you now. I'm just going to get my PDF up on the side so I can, and I'm happy to give this to everybody. It's just a simple little PDF. I can send it to you.
If you want the PDF, just probably say PDF in the comments, and I'll shoot.
I'm happy to send you a link so you guys can grab it. Yeah, it's 6 pages. I just saw it now. So the very first one, And let me just
Are you sharing
reiterate.
screen?
Oh, I'm not going to share the screen, no.
Oh, okay, radio.
I don't need to.
Beautiful. Thank you.
The reason that these particular 5 steps are so prevalent, that's the word, right? Prevalent in people's speech is because of usually their anxiety, or they're worried about being perceived in a certain way.
Right.
Most people, when they're a little bit worried or they're a bit anxious, what they'll do is they'll have certain muscle affectations, I call them tension patterns, that present themselves during speech. So these 5 things are the most common.
Right.
Number 1 is predictive prosody. Now, the word prosody is a wonderful word. I love it. It's like the word melody. When we have melody in our voice, or prosody, it means that our voice is moving up and down the pitches and making it really interesting so people can hear lots of different things. And when you're using prosody in your speech, it's very interesting to listen to. Yeah, exactly. It makes people really pay attention, and it can make them excited because they don't know what's coming. It's like a little surprise in every single sentence.
Yeah.
But when we don't have prosody in our voice, it can sound very flatline.
Right.
Some people, however, have predictive prosody, and that predictive prosody can come across in different ways. So, for instance, if I was speaking, it might it could be like that, choppy.
Yeah, right.
That's a predictive prosody of somebody who doesn't feel very confident in speaking, or they have a cultural background that maybe is Asian or Indian.
Yeah, right.
And when I'm working with those types of cultural backgrounds too, their familial conditioning is children should be seen and not heard, and we should shut our mouths, especially women, and hold our tongue.
Yes, exactly.
If you've grown up in that situation, it doesn't matter what culture you're in, you're going to have trouble speaking up and out for yourself.
Yeah.
So your predictive prosody might be mumbling.
Yeah.
It might be monotone. It might be the choppiness that I was talking about. There's lots of ways that it can come about. But the only way that you can find out if you have predictive prosody is to literally just record yourself speaking off the cuff for 1 minute.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to hear what other people hear.
Yeah, right.
Most people, when they record themselves, they say, oh, I don't like the sound of my voice. I don't like to listen back to myself on camera or on audio. And they think that they sound okay in their head, but as soon as they listen to it back, they go, oh my God, do I really sound like that? That's awful. The problem is we do sound like that.
That's
when
right.
we're speaking, we have all this bone conduction going on in the head, so it feels resonant and rich and full. But when our audience listens to us, that's what's really happening.
Yeah.
People get a real shock when they realize that it's not this that we're really hearing, our audience is hearing, it's the other. It's how we hear ourselves when we see ourselves back on video and audio. When you record yourself like that, you can really hear from another person's perspective, okay, what do I need to change?
Right. Okay.
What's too predictive about the way that I'm speaking? And that predictability will make people switch off.
Oh, right. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So that's number 1. So that's predictiveness.
Yeah.
Number 2 is upward inflections. Now, this is very prominent in Australia, and especially with women for whatever reason.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, last night I did hear it in some of my, I think there was some Indian or Pakistani background, and I heard it in some of those women as well on my call when I was doing my meetup group. And this upward inflection, or upspeak, it's commonly called, is a way of constructing a sentence that has an upward inflection at the end. And then every single statement sounds like a question. And so everything that you say goes up.
Yeah.
And when we speak like that, it makes the listener think, are they asking my permission, or are they asking a question, or what's going on? You're giving them a very bad signal. The only reason we need an upward inflection is to actually ask a question, like a legitimate question that you're going to get an answer to. Yeah. Lucia, is that a whiteboard that you have behind you?
Yes, it is.
See, now I asked you a question with a very definite upward inflection, and as a human being, you need to answer that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But if I speak to you with every sentence going up, which is another predictiveness, you're going to be thinking, when do I intercept, and is it now or do I have to wait?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting you said that about the when you were asking those cultural people, because it's very much their language. You know, I was in Thailand in March, and a lot of the women spoke like that as they were talking to you. It was interesting, and you just reminded me, you know, of that way that they speak. It was, yeah.
Yeah, and look, it could be a cultural thing in their language for a particular reason, but the problem is when they speak in English, it doesn't serve them.
It doesn't carry. Yeah, it doesn't carry.
It doesn't serve them because it doesn't make us sound like we know what we're talking about. It makes us sound very insecure.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Just letting the dog in, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3 is the trail off. It's a way that we speak, and when we're constructing a sentence, it starts out nice and strong, but then the ending of the sentence sort of drops like that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's another sign that that person is not quite confident.
Right. Yeah.
They will have grown up in a position where they wanted to speak up and speak out, but then lost their gumption, lost their bravado at the end, and then pulled back.
Yeah.
And you see this with people on camera or on stage. They sort of do this. When they first start, they say, "Hi, my name is Elisa James. How are you going?" They sort of retreat a little bit. Well, our voice is basically doing a retreat just to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to keep, to sound confident, we want to keep the voice on all the way to the end of every sentence.
Right.
When we do that, we're making the listener work less. You know, the listener is the main goal that we speak. Let's face it, all speaking is public speaking. We speak for somebody else's benefit, not ours. So if we speak and we make those sentences in nice construction for the audience to hear it, then it's going to be easier for them to get it.
Yeah.
So all these little things that I'm talking about, the disempowering vocal sounds, really help people construct sentences in a way that makes them more understood, more easily understood.
Well, I've identified a couple of me. So already, you know, when I first started doing lives and such, it was definitely me. I was that the person. And then now I think I'm more that stepping away from the camera when I'm thinking, because as you get older too, the thought patterns aren't as clear and precise, so you've got to process them. So yeah, I could identify myself in a couple.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And all of us, I mean, I wrote them because, you know, guess what I heard?
Yeah.
I learned this the hard way by watching myself on video and figuring this out, and then being able to recognize them in other people and in my clients.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is why I put all my trainings together, not because, you know, I'm the expert. It's because I've been there, done that. I now recognize what I did. I've had trauma. I've had anxiety. I've had PTSD. I know what that's like. I know how to get out the other side. And all of that gave me the speech patterns that weren't confident.
Yeah.
It was nothing to do with my voice. There was nothing wrong with my voice, really. It was everything else that needed to be fixed holistically to make my voice heal so I could actually speak back up for myself.
Yeah, beautiful.
If I hadn't done all that work, peeling back the onion layers and become authentic, I would never be able to do what I do.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I believe in healed healers teaching, not unhealed healers telling.
Telling, yeah. I have to agree. Yeah, you've first got to live it, you know, and then share it. So you first live it and share it. Yeah.
From a healed perspective, you know, from a higher vibration, so you can actually be the guide on the side as you're guiding people through their healing process.
Exactly. Beautiful. Yeah.
Right. And so the last 2 steps are monkey mind and vocal fry. So we'll just go through those quickly before we run out of time. Monkey mind and monkey mouth is another speech pattern of people who are a little bit nervous. What normally happens is that anxiety makes us think too much. It gives us a damaged part of the brain in the hippocampus that becomes very visual and very overactive. So we're the sorts of people that can visualize things really quickly and have lots of creativity, but we can also have nightmares. We can overthink things or worry about stuff.
Yes, exactly.
When our mind is going so crazy like that, guess what else is going to go crazy?
The voice.
Yeah, it's going to be blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? So what we need to do is calm the mind down so we can calm the speech patterns down so we don't ramble. Most people who have anxiety, they'll ramble because they haven't got their thoughts together and they can't collect their thoughts, or they want to speak so fast to get it all out before they get shut down. Yeah, believe me, I mean, that literally happens. I've had people who go, blah, 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 they literally spit it all out because they think I'm going to shut them down. Yeah. And that's the way they've had to behave because they needed to be heard.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but we've been conditioned from probably a very young age to do that.
That's
and as long as you're aware of these patterns, then you can start to change them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the last one is just under vocal production, which I call vocal fry. And it sort of sounds like that. So if people are speaking with a lot of noise in their sound, it doesn't make them sound very confident, and it doesn't make them sound capable, and it certainly doesn't make them sound healthy. But it's just underproducing all the muscles in the voice and not using it properly. And it's not going to serve you if you are lazy with your vocal tone, because it makes us sound like there's something wrong. Are we sick? Are we depressed? What's going on?
It's kind of monotone, isn't it? It's
and also
not got the personality in the voice. It's really just giving you nothing about the person. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, I love that, Elisa. That is really food for thought, because I can see my own personality in some of those projections, and being aware of them is the start. Being aware. And if anyone is interested in like having any voice coaching or anything, you have obviously some packages that you put together for people.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And right now, actually tonight, I'm having a webinar called The Voice of a Leader, and it's telling people, about how to sound more like a leader. And what I do is at the end of the classes, I show them how they can work with me. And to just cut to the chase, if you go onto www.thevoiceofaleader.com, you'll see the class that's starting to launch next week. And that class is a 6-week boot camp to help people speak more confidently, either on camera or off. It's thevoiceofaleader.com, and I'll share that with you after we get off the call as well. So if anyone's interested in that class, just PM me. I'll send you the PDF that I just talked about. And if you're interested in knowing more about the bootcamp, just go straight to that website and have a look. And I have a special discount link that I can send any of your clients if they're interested, so they can get 40% off the advertised price.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And I've just had a message from my VA saying that it's not live, so I am going to, it's recording, so that's a good thing. As soon as we've finished or completed, I will pop it up on my personal page and then share it. I'll get her to share it with you.
Awesome.
I think Facebook wasn't preparing right, so
yeah, sometimes that happens.
So it's been beautiful having you. And Elisa, I've said it right, haven't I?
Elisa with an E.
Elisa.
Mona Lisa.
I should know that. I am just really grateful that you've come on and shared this with my lady, the people on our group. It is just beautiful what you do, and it's amazing listening to your story, just the challenges that you faced, and now sharing that gift that you have from that experience to others. So I'm extremely grateful, and I thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a great night.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.